Just try to imagine a single weapon, one that moves silently beneath the waves and is capable of crippling the largest battleship with just one clean hit. Long before aircraft carriers, before missiles, the torpedo was the great equalizer. It was a stealthy hunter that completely, and I mean completely, redefined naval combat. But before we got to the sleek, self-propelled weapons we picture today, the concept was, well, it was brutally simple. It was basically a bomb on a very, very long stick. This was called the spar torpedo. And yeah, you had to physically ram your boat into an enemy ship to make it go off. Incredibly effective if you can get close, but as you can imagine, incredibly dangerous for the person holding the stick. In this quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head. You had the world's most powerful navies with these enormous, expensive battleships, and they were suddenly terrified. And why? Because a small, cheap boat carrying one of these underwater bombs could, in theory, neutralize a massive capital ship. That fear that a hidden, unseen threat could change everything sparked a massive technological revolution. So how exactly did we get from that, bomb on a stick, to the sophisticated weapon we recognize today? Well, it's a really fascinating story of clever inventors and one single, absolute game-changing idea.
Okay, so on the left, you can see that crude spar torpedo concept we were just talking about. But inventors like the Austrian naval officer Giovanni Lupus, whose model is on the right, they dreamed a lot bigger. His Küstenretter, which means coast saver, was designed to be a self-propelled weapon that you could steer from the shore with these long cables. A little impractical, sure, but the core idea was there, a weapon that could travel all on its own. The real breakthrough, though, that came when Lupus partnered up with an English engineer named Robert Whitehead. Whitehead took one look at the idea and just ditched the surface boat and the steering tables entirely. He designed this submersible, cigar-shaped weapon powered by compressed air. But his true genius, the most important part, was a secret chamber, a hydrostatic valve and pendulum system that acted as a depth regulator. It kept the weapon running straight and at a consistent depth. And just like that, the world's first true torpedo was born. But look, having a revolutionary weapon is one thing. Making sure it actually works when you need it is something else entirely. The torpedo's journey to dominance was almost completely derailed during its most critical test, the Second World War. In the first couple of years of the Pacific War, American submarine crews were facing a crisis. I mean, they were skilled, they were brave, they were lining up perfect shots on Japanese ships. They'd hear the satisfying thump of a direct hit, and then nothing. The torpedoes just weren't exploding. Something was terribly, terribly wrong with their main weapon, the Mark 14. Now, what's just wild about this is the sheer complexity of the failure. It wasn't just one problem. Oh, no. The Mark 14 was a disaster, plagued by 4 distinct catastrophic flaws. And the craziest part, each flaw cleverly masked the others. It ran too deep. Its fancy magnetic exploder often went off too early. The backup contact exploder was a dud. And, as if that wasn't bad enough, sometimes it would just erratically circle back and try to sink the sub that fired it. A total nightmare. The first piece of this very frustrating puzzle was the depth. The sub-skippers were aiming for the hull, right? They'd set their torpedoes for 10-foot depth, but the weapon was actually running about 10 feet deeper than that. It was just passing harmlessly right under the target. And yet, for months, the Bureau of Ordnance back in the States insisted their weapon was perfect, and the skippers were just bad at their jobs. Finally, fed up with the official denials, Rear Admiral Charles Lockwood, out in Australia, ordered a simple, undeniable test. He told his men to fire a torpedo set for 10 feet at a big fishing net. And the result? The torpedo didn't rip a hole at 10 feet. It tore through the net at 25 feet. The problem was real, and now, finally, they had proof. It is unbelievable, but it took nearly 2 full years of combat, 21 months, to diagnose and fix all of these issues. And the solutions, they weren't handed down from some pristine lab back home. They were figured out through the relentless, determined, and frankly, often insubordinate efforts of the commanders in the field who just refused to accept that their primary weapon was a dud. So, with those mechanical problems finally ironed out, the next great leap in torpedo technology wasn't in its body, but in its mind. It was time to give the torpedo a brain. The post-war era saw the torpedo completely transform. It went from being a straight-running, kind of dumb projectile into a guided missile of the deep. This was the dawn of the fire-and-forget torpedo, a weapon that could actively go out and hunt its target all by itself. So, how does a smart torpedo actually find its target? Well, it mainly uses two methods. You've got active homing, which is like a searchlight. The torpedo sends out sonar pings and then listens for the echo. It's very, very accurate, but it also screams, "Hey, torpedo in the water," to the enemy. Then you have passive homing, which is the silent listener. It just quietly hones in on the noise made by a ship's engines and propellers. It's way stealthier, but it can be tricked by quiet subs or decoys. Now you start combining those homing systems with other amazing technologies. Wire guidance, for example, lets a submariner literally steer the torpedo with a joystick for the first part of its run, updating its course in real time. And then you add proximity fuses. These let the warhead detonate not on impact, but directly underneath a ship's keel. This creates a gas bubble that breaks the ship's back, the most catastrophic damage possible. And all of that brings us to the modern era. So where does this silent hunter stand in the Navy of the 21st century? Let me tell you, the torpedo is more important than ever. It is an absolute cornerstone of naval power, and the major navies of the world are pouring millions and millions of dollars into developing even more advanced versions. Like the U.S. Navy's truly formidable Mark 48, a weapon that combines incredible speed, deep diving capability, and a frighteningly powerful brain. And the future? The future is just mind-bogglingly fast. We're now seeing the development of what are called supercavitating torpedoes. These things create a bubble of gas around themselves as they travel, which dramatically reduces friction. The result? Speeds of over 200 knots. That's nearly 230 miles per hour, underwater. It's a speed that is almost impossible to evade. The final evolution, and it's already happening, is the integration of true artificial intelligence. We are talking about torpedoes that can distinguish a real warship from a decoy, that can prioritize hitting an aircraft carrier in a convoy, and that can adapt its tactics in real time to counter evasive maneuvers. It's not just a weapon anymore. It's a weapon that thinks. So when you really step back and look at the whole story, it's incredible. We've gone from a simple bomb on a stick to an AI-guided underwater missile that travels at hundreds of miles per hour. The story of the torpedo is this powerful reminder that sometimes the most revolutionary threats, the ones that truly change the world, come silently from the depths, right where you can't see them coming.